we may have just found out the origins of the Giants of Elbaf. And I'm talking about the war-driven, bloodthirsty, savage giants that Jaguar D. Saul has been telling us about since he was introduced in One Piece, right? And this is a little bit of speculation, a little bit of theory, and a little bit of, hey, we got some serious evidence here that we could actually speculate on, right? Now, in the most recent chapter, chapter 1150, Emu makes an appearance and does some of the craziest stuff we have seen in the story so far. They literally have taken two of our favorite characters and just straight up turned them into bad guys. Now, if you don't know, go read the chapter real quick. But for those of you that do know, we seen Emu literally physically change Dorian Brogy and then a bunch of other giants too that got caught in like the blast or whatever, right? So Emu used this spell called the Contract of Evil, right? Or something like that. And she literally dips in Brogy into like the this circle pentagram thing, dips him into it like if it was like physical matter, turns him upside down. As they turn him upside down, the bottom half of his body's all black and like it just got dipped into something. And then he comes up, and when he comes up out of this like pool of evil, as you could say, he is literally totally different. He looks exactly like Oars. This is insane. I don't understand what this is. Like, this just might be how Oars was made, because you get all of these legends of giants being, you know, insanely bloodthirsty, war-driven. They're just savages, right? But then we got to Elbaf, and none of them are like that. Literally, there's no giants that are savages. Even the giant pirates, like the OG Jarl, he's not a savage. He's not like bloodthirsty. He actually cares about, you know, humans. If he didn't care about them, he would have just tried to smash the Straw Hats, you know, right away. Like, all of the giants that we've seen, they have not shown any sign of savagery, bloodthirstiness, right? But once you see what happens to Dorian Brogy, that immediately changes. They get the horns like Oris and their father, or not their father, but Hajruden's father and Kaido's father, the King Herald. And then they get the teeth, bro. This is what, it's like a dead giveaway. The same teeth. They get these big Oni tusks, like fang teeth, not tusks, but fang teeth with these big horns, and they grow. They're like literally bigger than Jarl now. They're like almost, or if not the size of Oars now, and Oars was bigger than all the giants. And so maybe Emu did this to Oars, right? And maybe she did it to a bunch of other giants. I say Emu as a she. I don't know why it comes off as a she to me. And maybe a long time ago, right, around the Oars era, she turned a bunch of these giants into like these, you know, omni-demon giants, right? And maybe they had offspring with other regular giants, like, you know, not necessarily mutual lovemaking there, but then they had these offspring, and the offspring ended up having horns, right? That would kind of explain why King Harold and other, you know, giants, not all of them, but a select few giants have horns. I think Loki has horns, right? I don't think it's just his helmet. And then, you know, maybe Kaido. Kaido is speculated to be a giant, and that's why he has, you know, like those Oni horns and like Onigashima. Literally, the whole entire skull is literally a giant Oni. So that might have been one kind of huge, crazy giant from back in the day. So this actually might be the origins of those giants. Like, Emu took regular giants, like the regular giants you see on Elbaf, like, you know, Hajrud and Dorian Brogy, and literally put them under this, you know, contract of evil, which turned them into these giant, even like, you know, no pun intended, giants, right? And it gave them those characteristics, and that's how they became bloodthirsty, and then they started taking over the world and started wreaking havoc everywhere. And these are the giants that people are feared. You know, these are the giants that the world government fears, you know, and everyone, you know, the like. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting to see what's going on here in Elbaf, because we got Emu, the final boss, and who knows if this is going to be like, maybe she only has a certain amount of time that she could take over on Gunko's body. That's why she turned, you know, Dorian Brogy into, you know, those Oni giants so they could just do the rest of the work. Because I mean, there was what in the last page, that double spread, there was like 6 of them, 6 of those giants. So it's like, who's gonna stop those guys? And can they regenerate? Can they use their regenerative powers? Because Dory or Brogy, I forget which one, I think it was Brogy, she shot his hand off with a shotgun. And his whole hand obliterated, like wrist up. His hand flew off. She separated his hand. You know how strong that shotgun's got to be? So she pulls out this shotgun out of nowhere, which is another topic we could get into because, hey, does that remind you of anybody just pulling shit out of their ass and just using it? This kind of sounds a lot like Gear 5 Luffy. And so that's going to be super interesting to see, like, what else could she, or is that, like, just stuff she already has, or is that just off the top of her head, she just pulls it out, right? So she, Ginku, she pulls out a shotgun, shoots Brogy in the arm, decapitates his arm, I don't even know if that's a word, delimifies his wrist, I don't even know if that's a word, and then when he gets dunked into the pool of evilness and comes back out, and it's kind of weird because this is kind of like a Stranger Things thing when he kind of went upside down. So he's like in the upside down, comes out. When he comes out, his wrist doesn't reattach all the way. So it's not necessarily regenerative, but it floats back and like is like floating, you know, connected like with an invisible connection, right? So he could still use his wrist. I wonder if he could like shoot it off like a rocket, like a mech or something like that. But anyway, he's able to use his wrist. He's able, and his, you know, weapon got like, you know, magnified as well, like it became greater. And, you know, Brogy ends up turning, or Dory turns into one as well. And then the other giants that were like surrounding them, they all get turned. And it takes a part of their lifespan. Who knows if it's like 100 years, if it's 50 years. Emu says it's going to take a little bit of their lifespan. So that's going to be really interesting when we see that as well. Because we don't really know what that means. That could have been 200 years compared to some of these giants. Because, you know, Jarl is like, what, 400 years old? He's one of the oldest giants. And that's old for a giant. So not every giant is going to be that size, you know? Or sorry, I mean that old. So it's really interesting to see. I believe that this actually might be the origins of like those Oni Oars type giants. Like, because a lot of people didn't think Oars was a giant, right? Which is, you know, fair to say, but if he's not a giant, what is he? Like an Omni? Like an Oni? Like, okay, then what's an Oni? An Oni has to be a giant because look how big he is. Like, he's huge. And that was something I always kind of debated in my head because they called, you know, Yamato an Oni, which she's part of Oni, but like, is that, you know, a giant, or is that a giant that was turned into an Oni? Like, how did they become? What is their origin story? We don't know, but I think this lays out a good blueprint, a good theory that this is where the Oars race of giants comes from, and they might have had babies with other races, or, you know, other giants that weren't turned yet, and that's where, you know, people like King Harold came from, you know, and that's probably why King Harold broke off his horns, right? That makes sense now. Like, he broke off his horns because he was like, oh no, I understood and I found out the truth of where our ancestors came from, and they're literally devils. They're literally made from Emu, which is the most evil person on the planet. I don't want these anymore. Boom, breaks them off, right? And maybe Emu came back, turned him into an Oni, and that's why Loki had to kill him, because Loki tells Hajrudin, do you think I really wanted to kill my dad? I didn't want to kill him, man, but I had to. Maybe because that's what was happening. Maybe he got turned into that. And, you know, but who knows? We'll find out, you know, sooner or later. Maybe Emu, you know, threatened him, hey, I'm going to turn you into an Oni if you don't fucking destroy Elbaf, or, you know, help me subjugate Elbaf, and that's why Loki had to kill him anyway. Who knows? But I think this is a really good foundation as to where these type of giants came from. And yeah, I can't wait for the next the next chapter. The next chapter is going to be freaking sweet. It might end on an even bigger cliffhanger since there's no break week. So yeah, we'll see. But that's pretty much the video. We might be getting a step closer to what we think might be the origins of the giants, especially the giants with horns, right? So, all right, everybody. That's the video. Peace out. See you guys on the next one.